All right, it's time to call the February 15th, 2023 Policy and Academics Committee meeting to order. First order of business is to call roll call.
Yes, sir. Katia.
Here.
Here. Ms. Leslie.
Here.
All
Item 2A, under item 2, new business, to consider revisions to policy JCDB, student dress code, as presented by Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir. We received this request, and the concept behind it is to give the principals a little more autonomy and discretion as it relates to when students can wear dress codes. The previous policy restricted it to once per week. This would allow principals to potentially exceed the once per week at their discretion. So the change would be designation of activity, spirit days is left up to the principal, period, and then the rest of the policy stays the same.
All right, very good. Do we have any public comment on this item? How about any board discussion? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Wells.
So the reason that this was brought up specifically from one principal was that to use spirit shirts, school approved spirit shirts, as a uniform shirt, as a polo. That way, they use this as a fundraiser. So if they can sell more spirit shirts, they get more fundraiser money. And since it is a school approved shirt, they could, it'd be more versatile for that.
Any other board discussion? Sensing none, we're ready to vote. Oh, yes. How about that motion? Ms. Wells, would you like to make that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. So Ms. Wells and Ms. Bourgeois, first and second. Any other discussion? All right. Now we can go ahead and do the vote. Thank you. All right. Motion carries. So item B, to consider revisions to revising the job description for the position of special education program effectiveness liaison. And I believe that's Ms. Daphne Jones to speak on that.
Yes, sir. Presently, the job description has master's level. For the applicants to apply, they have to have their master's, and what we're proposing is to change it preferred. We feel that we have a lot of teachers out, especially in our district, that have a great skill set, that especially to work with students with significant disabilities, but they do not have their master's. So this would open up our applicant pool as those positions.
Very good. Do I have a motion? Ms. Bourgeois? Ms. Wells? Any public discussion, or I should say public comment on this item? Any board discussion? And sensing none, we can vote. Item C, to receive information from We the People Education Committee concerning a new proposal from the CDC, and I believe it's Ms. Vicki.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Vicki Cluche, We the People Value Community, Schriever, Louisiana. Thank y'all for allowing us to come. And I want to congratulate all the new school board members and returning school board members, because I didn't get to do that last time. So all of the school board members, you guys have had actually a couple of emails from us regarding this information. So I know you have the survey, but we are here to educate and inform you regarding a CDC initiative that is aimed at, of course, our precious children. And it is called, it's right here, I have it, if anybody would like to look at a hard copy. It's kind of thick, so I didn't do a bunch of them, but it's called LGBTQ Inclusivity in Schools, a Self-Assessment Tool. This is not a federal mandate yet, but anytime something is put out by a powerful three-letter organization, CDC, that kind of thing, It tends to kind of instill reactionary, gee, I better look at that, or I better do that, or I, better get on that. And so even when they just put it out as a recommendation, it carries power with it. And so we wanted everybody to be aware of it. And it wants you to assess inclusiveness within government schools. So in looking over the survey, the inclusiveness seems to exclude the majority of students. We didn't see any mention of inclusivity for the homeless, the helpless, the valedictorian, the high-risk student, the special ed students, or students with learning or physical disabilities, ADHD, gifted and talented students, low-income students, college-bound, school to work. It strictly was inclusiveness to expressly for LGBT, according to the CDC guide. So, based on the content, we're wondering, is this an inclusive thing or is it an exclusive thing? And let me be clear, we are for every child and every student, 100%. That is the heart of God. What we are against is perversion or indoctrination and harm to our children. That is also the heart of God. So this is recommended for school board members, superintendents, principals, coaches, teachers, support staff, school nurses, and others. So it's a grade of A, B, or C, and A being, I guess, excellent, C being failing, B being, I guess, you need to improve. So a few examples I want to give you. One example is, one question reveals that if a person believes they can determine a student's gender, they receive a C grade, which is failing. So, simple terms, my 6-year-old comes home having met a new friend, Casey. And we respond, how nice. Is Casey a boy or a girl? She's a girl. Well, she just failed. My 6-year-old failed because she made an assumption that the little girl was indeed a little girl. I know it sounds absurd, but I'm not making it up. A school that scores mostly C's must commit to change. Change to what? Another one, sex ed teachers are given higher marks if they present information on all types of sex, not centering on what. When I did this at Terrebonne, I had to stop, and I'm going to stop here too. I'm not going to say this whole sentence because I don't want to be on video using these words, but let me repeat this. Sex ed teachers are given higher marks if they present information on all types of sex. And this is the same for school nurses, according to the survey. So you're a better nurse, a better school nurse, if when a student comes to you for care, you're able to tell them about all types of sex. One question for teachers that receives a grade of C says, I have, quote, I have visual labels in my classroom focused primarily on heterosexual relationships. So I know teachers are very creative. They have bulletin boards and posters and things on the walls. Mom, Dad, and the children, Alice and Jerry, I'm old, Dick and Jane, brother with his girlfriend, those kinds of things. And so if those are the primary relationships that are indicated on the walls, then that teacher has failed in her classroom, according to this. I feel like this is pulling our teachers, the most important profession on the planet, down as low as they can possibly pull them. And they are working to turn our children into something other than what their creator created them to be. How does this correlate with the Title IX proposal travesty? It's just another wave. It's another wave. It's the next wave. And they will hit us over and over and over until we either stop it or they succeed with their agenda. With Title IX, they came in through the USDA. What does the USDA have to do with public education? I don't know. What does the CDC have to do with public education? You wouldn't have thought. That they're coming in however they can. I've spoken with our state superintendent who says he would not approve this or ever disseminate it, and if they ever start getting pressure to do so, he would let us know. In most of our Bayou community, area, our school boards, administrators are definitely have a tendency toward traditional values, and we honor that and we appreciate that and we know that. That said, we must be hyper aware of what lurks just beneath the surface of our society here at home. So our call to action to you guys, parents, grandparents, anybody watching, teachers, all of us, is call our legislators and let them know. They don't know about this. Did you know about this? Because I didn't, and all of a sudden here it is, very well put together. So I know they've been working on it for a long time. Meet with, people in other school districts and, that are willing to say no and make a plan to be proactive. George Washington said, national morality cannot prevail without religious principle. I'm going to give you one of those principles in Mark chapter 10. It says, people were bringing little children to Jesus for him to place hands on them, but the disciples rebuked them. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant. And he said, let the little children come to me. Do not hinder them. My words, leave them alone. For the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. We should be indignant about any kind of perversion affecting our children. Once something like this would become a federal mandate, it will come with money strings attached. We must be proactive. If we wait, then we will end up being reactive and simply conform so as not to lose federal money, which they always dangle in front of us. The government is run on taxpayers' money. They do not own us, and they surely do not own our babies. It's time to turn nonsense into common sense. Thank y'all so much. And again, if anybody wants a link or to know about this, we're here to the end of your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vicki. All right. Is there any other public comments at this time? Yes, ma'am. Please come on up and do the jazz. We kind of had Ms. Vicki checked, so.
Debbie Melvin, Cedar Tree Drive, 322 Cedar Tree Drive in Thibodeau. I just have, I always ask a question, and I just ask that you would think, what does CDC stand for? It stands for Center for Disease Control. What does that have to do with making this kind of proposed policy for our schools? They're supposed to protect us against disease, things like food safety that I used to teach all the time. Just not being involved in policies where schools are concerned. So let's keep these agencies in their own lane and not infringing on other responsibilities that we have, especially on a local level. So just a thought.
Anyone else from the public? All right. Any discussion from the board? Yes.
I did read it. I did assess myself to a point. I feel that everybody's already protected under our civil liberties laws, and we do the best to make sure every child is protected. And conversations I've had with Superintendent Martin since I've come onto this board, and he reflects our community as this board reflects on what our community is about. And I just want to say that this is particular to one group. I feel after researching it and looking at it that it's an informative, because it does say that this isn't reflective of the CDC in some portions of it, and some of the things they have up seem more like for parents that need resources. But with the conversations I've had with the superintendent, that this is a district where if we talk about bullying, we talk about other things that go on within our laws within the state, all children are protected from all of the issues that that is brought up on that site. So I just wanted to say that it didn't go unnoticed, it didn't go not looked into, but I feel strongly that civil liberties laws protect all of our children. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? forward. All right. And we will go on to, item 3A, elementary education report. Ms. Hodson.
All right. I have a little handout for you tonight. I'm not going to go over this document, but I just wanted you to have this at hand. This time of the year, in my former job as a principal, was the busiest time of the year because we were beginning to close out the current school year while really starting to plan for the next year. And so I think my exhaustion the last week has been because of that, because we're trying to handle both things at one time. But I wanted you to be able to see some of the things that we've done this school year. The structure of our professional development is following the Thursday after the board meeting. We meet with our principals at the media center as an elementary group, and then Mr. Delcom does his middle and high school. But before we start that meeting, the superintendent begins and kind of debriefs about what happened at the board meeting. So he talks to the group. Usually we give him 30 minutes and he takes an hour and a half. And that's the truth. So our meetings are usually backed up, but it's all good. It's important that our leaders hear from our superintendent. So I just have sort of a list of topics that we covered this school year. A lot, we're curriculum heavy. I mean, that's what we do in our meetings. I'm really proud of the work we've been able to do this year. We've really built a collaborative team. Part of our, also this year, what we started was a principal spotlight. So I have one or two principals speak at each meeting, and they bring the best practices from their schools and share it with a group of 18. It's really a powerful experience, and it gives everybody an opportunity to shine, but we also get to steal from one another. So I'm really happy about that. But you can sort of see what we've done. I'm particularly happy about our flow charts that we developed for math and ELA instruction. We've really tried to make things consistent from school to school and kind of setting out those non-negotiables that we have for our district. We have a lot of supplemental programs, and we really got deep in how you use those programs as intended, how many days a week you do them, how many minutes a day. Because as teachers, we want to do them all, but sometimes doing them all isn't what's best. So it's really structuring. So we have a framework now for ELA and math. And then also the last page is where we go from here. So we already are starting our first professional development for next year with our teachers for ELA in April and May. We'll be able to touch every teacher in that district, K-5, which is over 250 teachers. So we have pulled them out for one instructional day. We'll be real careful not to pull too many people out of our school, but we feel like it's necessary that we begin the work for next year. So our motto is going to be, I'm going to do it. I'm going to model, not me personally, but our coaches and our curriculum specialists will model. And then we're going to work with them to do what we want them to do together. And then they're going to go back to their schools and do it. So much like we do in the classroom, I do it, we do it, and then you do it. So we'll use that strategy as we lay out our professional development for both ELA and math. We are hoping that in Super App we do get Eureka Squared. It's very similar to what we're doing right now in math, but it condenses the lessons. Currently we have 180 lessons in Eureka. It would be condensed to 140, which would allow us some extra time to provide additional supports to our students who may need the greatest need. Because that's really the biggest complaint from our principals and our staff, is we have so much to teach with so little time. So that's why I'm really excited about Eureka Squared, and we do have a model to roll it out, an implementation plan that we think that will be best for our teachers and our students. So that's basically so those are the updates. Thank you.
Moving on to the secondary report, Mr. Delcom.
Yeah, good evening. I'm gonna try to be a little faster than this time.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the curriculum side, we are also moving to Eureka Squared with our middle school students. And I mean, she covered most of what's changing about that. Our focus is with our teachers and making sure that they understand what those changes are going to be and preparing them for that transition into next school year. We're also working for the same purpose with social studies. Our social studies standards are changing moving into next year. The state has not really given us a lot of information to work with yet. But I'm very thankful for Ms. Freelander, my social studies curriculum facilitator, who is very much ahead of the game, anticipating what those changes are going to be. A lot of it is actually moving standards from one grade to another grade. So we're preparing for that. We had a meeting this morning with Ms. Hodson pertaining to that. We're also moving our principals towards a new way of, or a different focus in terms of looking at their teachers. The first half of this year was all about the new NEAT rubric that we have implemented. I feel like we did a pretty good job implementing that. I can't tell you that I've had a single complaint regarding that rubric and the implementation from any of our staff. But now that that implementation is fully complete, we are starting to focus back towards alignment to our standards, which is always going to be our first thing in Lafourche Parish, and also changing the look fors in terms of our walkthroughs that our administrators do, from focused on what the teachers do into actually what are the students doing. Because what the students do and the work that they do and the work that they produce is actually the end game for all of those lessons. So changing that focus to focus more on what the students are doing, not as much as what the teacher is doing, but indirectly, what are the teachers getting students to do, and looking at it in that way. About a week ago, I went to the Jumpstart Convention in Baton Rouge. We had our principal, Mr. Jared Walker from the CMC, and our career technical, Ms. Bonnie LaFour, actually presented at this state conference on our welding apprenticeship, which is the first registered apprenticeship in the state of Louisiana through the Workforce Commission. So that got a lot of positive play from other people who were viewing their presentation. They really did a good job in representing Lafourche at that conference. What's taking up our time right now in my department, a lot of it is Thibodeau Middle School. Andy's still telling me it's going to be open in August, even though it's been raining. We're working with them a lot, taking care of things like what key is going to open what door. I mean, we're in kind of a phase on, at least on our side, of a lot of just details that we are working through. Working closely with Ms. LaFawn and Ms. Tobias. Ms. Tobias is working on getting our moving companies staged and in place and those contracts ready. We still think that it's going to be early June that we are able to begin the move, which we thought that we would start with the move of the teachers' classrooms first, and kind of save the administrative offices for last. So we're staging all of that and just logistics in getting all of that set up. We're ordering scoreboards, we're ordering sports uniforms. We just finished the logo of the school today, which is now going to move us on to designing the basketball court with Mr. Positeri. So we're just constantly grinding through all these little details to be prepared for a smooth transition into that school in August. Our high schools are starting to master schedule for next year. Mr. Martin said he got some papers at his house last night to look at choosing classes for his freshmen at Central Lafourche next year. So they're all working on that. And typically our middle schools start scheduling later, but we are scheduling now for Thibodeau Middle School. Since it's going to be such a drastic change for them, we're trying to get ahead of that. Of course, we're doing all of that without a principal right now, but that is scheduled to close that position when we come back from Mardi Gras. So shortly thereafter, we'll be looking at officially naming the leader of that school in the next few weeks. On the elective side, we have our esports programs in our high schools are up and running. They're actually competing. We've actually won a few. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like yet. I mean, it's not like you can like go to the event because it's all virtual. But that's up and running. Ms. McCarthy's doing a great job of putting that together. And we have our annual middle school athletics meeting tomorrow night with our middle school athletic directors and principals. A lot of proposed changes, but more importantly, we're going to focus at the Thibodeau Regional Medical Center with some of their staff to help us learn more about heat illnesses, which is such a big focus, especially right now after Damar Hamlin with the Buffalo Bills the other night. So we're going to do some PD with them at that point. That's everything. I think I'm. I think it's Ty.
All right, moving on to an update from federal programs, Ms. Akalai.
So I'm gonna be short and sweet, a lot like me. I'm gonna beat both of them. So we did, submit Super App for the 23-24 school year. So what Super App is, it's a, opportunity to write a grant for competitive funding to help fund curriculum, instruction, assessment, things like that. So we wrote for a little over $500,000. Now, will we get all of that? But we're shooting for the stars, and hopefully we get some of it. We find out in April after the Bessie board meets. So that's Super App. Pre-K registration. That is ongoing right now for next school year. At this time, currently today, as of February 15th, we have one school with a waiting list already and 3 other schools on the verge of having a waiting list. So our numbers look really good for pre-K. We're trending above normal. So like a little baby boom or something happened. So that's pre-K, and that's it for, that's not it for federal, but that's enough for tonight. All right.
Nice start.
I won.
All right. And the last update, the child welfare and attendance, Mr. Phelps on this.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So our February 1 count this year, our MFP count was 13,092 students compared to our October 1st, 2022 count, which was 13,123 students. So we short 31, we lost 31 students, which doesn't include pre-K because that's a federal program and that's included in our total enrollment. So this is just our MFP, our money count. As far as child welfare business, we've been busy with disciplinary hearings. We've conducted at this point, Mr. Cook and I, 188 hearings. Mostly at our high schools. We had 49 at Thibodeau High, 34 at Central, and 28 at South. 41 of those have been vape-related expulsions involving THC. We continue to try to figure out a way to combat that issue along with the Sheriff's Department. Typically, in a school year, we may have 15 drug-related expulsions. Again, we're already at 41 this year. Most of those were related to vaping THC products. So we did a video along with the Sheriff's Office, an educational video 3 months ago, reaching out to the parents for their support, making them aware of the issues that we're having in our schools, and just trying to get control of this major issue that's not only an issue in LaFouche, but across the country. With that said, our alternative sites are full. We had capacity at our central site, and we getting ready to come up with a plan to address the capacity at that site as well. And we'll be sending some information out to our principals in the central LaFouche area regarding that probably tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, with no other business up, we will adjourn.